Now, the issue that we have now with neoliberalism is neoliberalism has decayed, this is a Fisher thing, but has decayed any socially democratic aspect of society, and they would do a play to these confused people. But what that turned into was a company that still exists on the quayside in Newcastle called the Live Theatre Company. And it still is a environment that invites young people to come in and experiment with theatre. Now, those kind of things just aren't funded now. So we have these these physical monuments that I actually kind of go to see. What's the word when you religiously go and
pilgrimage?
See? I almost go on pilgrimages to these monuments to see not only what my dad created, but what the kind of economy and the social fabric that I was brought up in, and I was kind of promised. Created.
That's the lost future right there.
That's the lost future right there. And so what I have been really interested in over the past couple of years is we lost Fisher tragically in 2017 in the only way I think he could have gone. I would have been really interested to see what he thought about my band, because I couldn't articulate these ghosts in our society that we can all feel, but we don't really know how to put our finger on. What he was basically saying, for a lot of people who don't know his work, is that the 21st century is defined by its inability to articulate it for very long, like Witch House and the influence of, I think the most influential band of the past 20 years is band, no group, or people who made music.
When I first heard him say this, I was like, Project Pat. But then I'm like, even Project Pat's like, Didi Rashad. So Didi Rashad encompasses all that he's talking about right now. So much more influential. Okay, well, not as influential probably, because but he should have been. And it's Matt Healy's job to like bring what should have been to the forefront, not what already is. What already is doesn't matter. The 3-6 Mafia are known for being this pop culture phenomenon. I mean, they probably were one of the first people to do trap. Maybe, but they're not. Like Project Pat, sure. I think Project Pat is important, but he hasn't mentioned Project Pat. I don't know. I feel like if we're going to bring up something like that, I'll bring up DJ Rashad and Tech Life. That was important. Influential, probably not as influential, but it wasn't more important. And we, as people who understand pop culture, should be bringing this idea to the forefront. Like, hey, let's propose this. DJ Rashad, what do you think about that? Let's talk about that. Let's talk about what happened there. He's dead. R.I.P.
Music, whose pop music references more. It's the tempo of trap music. It's they started doing this. Rapping became like that. That's all 3-6 Mafia. It's all pop. It's all trap.
I don't think you should be talking about hip hop, dude. Like, not good. Not a good look. Oh, so white.
So black music started to articulate the 21st century a bit when we got to around about 2011 and onwards.
There's never really like blues music, jailhouse rock, 1920s. Black music's not just hip hop. And
that's kind of when I came out. Again, just to explain this theory to my fans who maybe not quite understand it, is that we've gotten to a place now where we can't quite imagine something truly revolutionary and new. And spending the time and building the audience for that new revolutionary thing is too expensive.
It's exactly. My favorite example of this is very pronounced in film, the kind of classic that you...
I think they're supposed to be ahead in New York City, but they're obviously not. Like, Manga's ahead, like Manga's miles ahead of this. Read Manga. If you want to know what pop culture, read Manga. Like, it's got so much more in it than fucking this conversation.
Easy example of it is just this infinite reboots of films that have already been made. Not like necessarily, oh, well, we were overdue for another and boring, and it doesn't have this like radically new aesthetic experience that we had in decades previous.
Before you start this is what I want you to talk to you about, and I've written this down.
In saying that, I think film needs to be addressed And I heard that Vincent Gallo did a talk recently on what he's doing, I think. And I'd like to watch that because I'd like to hear what he has to say about film right now. I don't think he wants to be part of it. Obviously, he hasn't made a film for a long time. One of his films are one of my favorite films of all time, Brown Bunny. I think it's a beautiful film. It's not just beautiful. It's got everything in it. It's got everything in it. It's like very important film. People say it was booed at Cannes, but I don't think so because it was given a standing ovation as well. So people might have booed it, sure, but there were most people gave it a standing ovation. Brown Bunny.
I want to talk to you about the Museum of Ice Creamification. But this is our thing, right?
Yeah.
And this is only stuff
that
I write down when we're on the phone that I want to go into more with you. But what I wanted to ask you was about this concept, the Museum of Ice Creamification of art institutions, how they have become adult daycare centers, and the loss of gatekeeping in art institutions being a bad thing in general, how alternative institutions need to be subsidized to recreate a culture that is defined by and AI and ClearNet platforms being anti-creation and pro-consumption. So explain to my audience the Museum of Ice Creamification of art institutions.
Well, okay, so if you're a young creative, you end up with this idea that what we need to do as like progressives, very broadly speaking, is we have to overthrow the corrupt institutions.
That's right.
That like that you should be fighting against and whatever. And I would say that there's a conflict right now amongst the ruling class about how they prefer to already. Some people like to be patrons, but others do not. And so in the period that both you and I grew up, one of the things that was offered to young creatives was a platform in which anyone can post. There's no editors, there's no curators, there's no gatekeepers. You can bypass any opinion and just post what you want to the platforms. Those people, this is very curious and pronounced in the art world, they never donated to museums. Unlike the Carnegies, unlike the Fricks, unlike all of the robber barons of the 20th century that, pillaged society but then gave back in the form of these extraordinary libraries and museums and public institutions like the opera, for example, the new 21st century Silicon Valley robber barons have not chosen to give back to culture. And that's actually very unique thing in the development of capitalism, because usually when people take a lot off of the table, they give something back in some way. I think that's an ideological decision, because what they would say is that we actually built all the platforms in which you can upload all of your thoughts to YouTube, you can post them to Twitter or whatever, and so now everybody is an artist, and we gave you the means to do that, to publish and so on. So
and everybody's an activist.
And well, that is naturally one of the results. So I like to take this contrarian position in that what we are seeing is actually an erosion of the public sphere, and of public goods through this competing structure of the platform.
Yes.
And so I think actually the logic that we were raised with to rebel against the institutions is kind of pretty outmoded by like 20 years.
Yes,
right?
it is.
These are relatively new phenomena, like the mass adoption curve of Facebook is like 2012. So, I mean, the anatomy catches up to these things. We're still a few decades away. Like, we're still learning this kind of Foucault boomer, like, rebel against the institutions,
exactly.
whatever. But, like, the institutions are more weak than they've ever been. They were actually thoroughly defeated. And so I'm a big proponent of not using the platforms as our desired alternatives. I think we need to build new institutions.
Exactly.
I'm not saying the existing ones are savable. I think that the task of our generation, people like you and me, is to build new institutions, new trustworthy institutions. Because the platforms are turning everything into the fucking museum of ice cream, where everything is content for ad views and so on.
If you look at the new Van Gogh experience, which is an art institution saying, come and see our art show, they are not actually expecting people to come and revel in the aesthetic delights of projectors. What they want you to do is come and create content that becomes advertisement for the institution itself. Right. Same with the Museum of Ice Cream. They are no longer art institutions. They are essentially adverts for the concept of an art institution or the art institution itself, which is why you'll go to a gallery and you'll walk in and you'll go, Cause times Rick and Morty experience, and you'll have some art speak. But what it's actually
I could actually see that happening.
Right. What it's actually for is for
it's
like
a Brad post next week, and it's a real thing 2 weeks later.
This is the whole thing. One of the things. Let's start with that idea of the creamification of art institutions. Now, it's not just art institutions, but it's big media corporations. Example of a huge artist or a concept like Marvel. The most again, Trammell will talk about this, the most enduring product that has been created by those companies is the consumer identity of the people who are into it.
Right.
So what Marvel or other artists have realized over the past 15 years with social media and people's kind of projection of who they are, and is that being a fan of something is now a form of political identity. So when I grew up, when I grew up, if you were a super fan of something, if you went over to someone's house and they were a super fan of something, before you went in their bedroom, they would go, "Listen, I'm not fucking weird. Right? just don't judge me."
Are you thinking of like a specific person right now?
Yeah, there's a couple of people who were like Oasis, and you'd walk in, and their room was a shrine.
It's
to
just
this thing.
everywhere.
And the relationship
ceiling,
was, I don't know how the camera can pick me up, but say there's a poster on your wall. Your relationship was looking at this poster. Your relationship with fandom now is going like this to the poster, like showing other people who you are through your kind of fandom. And you therefore become essentially a part of the promotional labor force of the company itself.
I mean, this is practically speaking, it's called user-generated content. It's built into advertising campaigns.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
how
for
many
example,
people you can get to spread the post and share it and engagement and so on.
I don't like doing that because I think it's very, very contrived. So I try and stay away from that in the 75 sphere. And so that's one of the interesting things, and about that kind of art institutional problem. Art and aesthetics is how we compute and understand time. And when that dissolves, the depressive flattening of culture is what Fisher talks about. And again, for my fans, let me just give like a really obvious example. If I said to anybody the 60s or the 70s or the 80s, the first thing that you would think of is the cultural producers of those times. 50s rock and roll, 60s hippies, 70s disco and punk, 80s rave and a new rave into rave and stuff like that. They were so overtly articulate in month.
Yeah.
Whereas if I said...
So that ice creamification thing was so anticlimactic. Is that it? So what it is, it's his protest against people using content as a...
said, what's the sound of this idea that a future was ever going to come? So, again, to stick with the 90s, you had movies like Fight in an office cubicle, and it was modern life is boring, and every movie, these upper classes, you were born into the aristocracy, right? But with that, back in the day, when that was the ruling class, you know, there was this sense of noblesse oblige.
There was a responsibility that came with it.
So a lot of these people would go into civil service. That sense.
But what they're going to say is, so they're going to say, well, what, you know, we had more freedom in aristocracy because, like, you know, there was peasants and there was rich people. I don't see how that's better, but B, anyway, I thought he's going to say, now we have capitalism, and, you know, capitalism has become, like, the rich don't feel like they have to give back as much anymore because because everyone has to work hard to stay on top. Even a rich person has to, like, stay on top somehow. They can't just be rich and stay on top. Like, just the point, if you're rich and you're well and get ahead, if you're a black person, like, so he's going to talk about disparity and inequality. And he's going to talk about inequality being bad and equality being good, probably.
The sense of noblesse oblige started to disappear because there was an idea of, you look at Silicon Valley or your kind of Ayn Rand.
Yeah, the new money does not give to culture.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so with that is that now there isn't this inherent kind of social pressure to give back. You know what I mean? And I think that
yeah, I mean, I think we should be publicly shaming these people for it. Not that that's enough pressure, but just to kind of like to lay out what the concrete forms operates for profit, and the underlying assumption of this is that all culture needs to be supported by consumers with pitchforks, and we know where they'll be coming for.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, opera's a good example as well, because things are starting to become opera in the way that opera is a refined, I don't, what do you want to call it?
You say everything's starting to become opera or Oprah? Opera.
Performance or something
Crystallized.
It's a crystallized activity.
A little time capsule.
That we go
20th century bohemian LARP. Yeah.
Redundant in himself. I'm just gonna make up words because I feel like they are, so I can.
Exactly.
Yeah, very powerful.
It is.
And it's still pervasive in a lot of creative industries. You know, unfortunately that's not the world that we exist in anymore. But like the idea of like having that kind of romantic life doesn't exist anymore.
Hoffman now, do you know what I mean? Who's like writing "fuck the system" or something like that. Becomes a massive. And also one of the
How do Sex Pistols say that? Fuck the system.
things. The problem is that like all of this trickle down stuff, like when I spoke about like Throbbing Grissle or like Peter Gabriel at the same time looking at the Fairchild and thinking what to do with it, like Throbbing Grissle were like art school kids with no money that were making this noise that
They also do gay porn.
people turned into a mainstream kind of sonic change in music and stuff like that. If that's not happening, you're not going to get inspiration anywhere. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, a lot of artists now, like this small crew of us, whether it be me, Dijon, Bon Iver, McGee, whoever it is, are all constantly talking about like, what does it sound like?
Bon Iver, Richard Prince, maybe a little bit more fucking prevalent than fucking
to make music now. Do you know what I mean? And we're all trying to kind of push ourselves forwards.
We share this this interest that a lot of the most kind of interesting, weird, experimental, avant-garde culture has moved line in the last few years. And if I'm pulling in, that's where I look for the exciting new thing.
Yeah.
Your forthcoming album title pulls a quote from a very interesting online subculture. Do you want to tell us a bit of
authenticity or irony? Do you know what I mean? So basically what I learned...
We're ironic in the face of irony. We're ironic in the face of irony. Are we? I mean, usually we're just annoyed in the face of irony because irony's a bit annoying.
Is to be a bit goo-prone, a bit soppy, a bit naive, and you know, sometimes what could be described as soppy things. And I think that it's so much easier.
It's a soppy thing. They can't just make up words like this. They're not qualified to coin phrases and make up words. It's a fucking podcast I've never heard of in my life. What do scroll you mean? Scrolling.
But if you dethrone sincerity with irony, you eventually get placement. It's just another way of doing it. And it's not really a means to an end. Like irony is, for me now, a tool to highlight.
No one talks about sincerity. It's not even a characteristic of a human being. A human characteristic would be compassion. It'd be neurotic. Maybe sincerity. It's not even like...
The first one was a kind of on the nose parody of like Woody Allen, do you know what I mean? Because we were in New York and we were just, me and Jordan were just, we were just doing it on the fly, and we would just write these little skits and then we'd go out and we'd shoot them. It's actually, it is essentially.
So, this doom scroll bullshit, I mean, I'd like to know who else is on there. Who else do you interviewed? Because this is Abomination. Who's that? No. Where is the channel? Joshua Citarella. There we go. Okay. Matty Healy, my god. Who are these people? Post-ironic hyper-political extreme. Oh my god. Post-ironic, yeah. Hyper-political extremism. Yeah, okay, so it's left-wing. Left-wing politics at the moment. Trauma, virtue, and liberal elites. Trauma, interesting. That could be interesting. Destroying the US. Weightlifting aesthetics. That word again. Beyond the pipelines and rabbit holes. Oh my god. This guy. Doom Scroll. What a great name that was. Like, such a good name. Doom Scroll. Oh my god. Oh, people. Well, I learned nothing. And I feel like what I learned that you shouldn't get your sociology from people on YouTube. You probably could the name, well, is that Foucault? Search that. Search fucking search Foucault. If you want real pop culture, real modern philosophy. He never used the word aesthetic. B-U-L-T, I think. He invented the idea of power structures, being under the power of someone, being over the power of someone. 48 laws of power. So, like, he was 48 laws of power before 48 laws of power was 48 laws of power. 57 for 57 for 57, you know. Don't listen to these people, listen to Foucault.